Many of the offshore fields in the GCC are mature. Maintaining production and bringing new reserves online from such fields would require an increasing drilling intensity. The emphasis is not just in the number of wells to be drilled, but also in their complexity as well as escalating costs. And if we look out throughout the GCC in the next 5 years, you will find that the capital allocation for projects in the offshore is on the rise. Drilling for deep gas targets must overcome the challenge of high pressure and high temperature, and increasingly so also as we explore deeper horizons on the onshore. The Saudi Aramco World's article wrote, "A mathematical model of Safaniya can determine quickly and precisely the ideal location of future wells in the field based on mathematical formulas and high-speed computers." This article was written in 1962. 50 years on, our computing power has increased unimaginably, but there still remains room for improvement, and modeling software continues to be refined. There are also continuous improvements in collecting data on which models are being built using innovative technologies such as 4D seismic, which can use to improve the image of fluids between the boreholes. Incremental improvement in drilling and completion technologies will drive down costs. It is essential that new technologies address not only the challenges of exploration and increased drilling intensity, but also challenges of larger projects. And the CEO spoke about the two biggest projects that the oil sector is about to undergo, the fourth refinery and the clean fuels, and these are really complex and large projects, as well as increased complexity in geology, settings, and higher pressure and higher temperatures that we have to contend with. We must also respond to new health, safety, and environmental requirements. To summarize today's presentation, despite uncertainty associated with the available data, we estimate that approximately 29% of the GCC's oil and gas reserves and 32% of their production does come from offshore areas. The geology offshore is similar to onshore GCC, but there are additional operational challenges in the offshore environment than that of onshore. However, GCC countries as well are well set to meet these challenges using the most up-to-date technologies. The offshore GCC waters are shallow and environmentally sensitive. And that's why there was a lot of emphasis in the papers. If you saw yesterday when KOC declared that they will go into the Bay of Kuwait, they were extra sensitive to mention that because of the environmental sensitivity, they will take this very seriously. This requires careful exploitation. We can minimize the impact of our activities through such technologies as long-reach drilling from shore, and that the cuttings are re-injected and used as was done successfully in Saudi Arabia at the Hanifa development. Many of the offshore fields are mature, but as we have seen, a number of significant oil and gas projects are underway, and there are many more reserves and reservoirs to be tapped into, which have been kept on the shelf for the last decade. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hashim, for this interesting presentation on the offshore capacities and the offshore potential that stand in the region. Last but not least, we are going to address now the heavy oil, because there has been a lot of papers in the press recently on this heavy oil potential in the region. So let me introduce you Dr. Majid, Abdul Hamid Majid. He has a PhD and has he qualified himself a humble geologist. Personally, I don't know any humble geologist, but if we have one here, it's very good. Dr. Majid has more than 28 years of experience in the upstream sector of the oil industry. Currently, he is a special advisor to the president of Canadian Natural Resources Limited for Middle East and Caspian region. He joined Canadian Natural when the company acquired Ranger Oil Limited in 2000. And in the last 17 years, Dr. Majid has been involved with the geological and engineering assessment, business development and production sharing and services contract negotiation. So, Mr. Majid, I lead you the chair, and I think that you are going to explain us what are these potential of heavy oil in the region. Thank you very much in advance for your presentation.
Thank you very much. I thank the organizer for inviting me for this presentation, to make such an interesting presentation on the heavy oil, or the difficult oil that this part of the country has. Now, let me put forward my objectives. The objectives, let me read it here rather than turning around. To review the statistic of heavy oil resources and production in the Middle East area. To demonstrate the key attributes that are required to develop heavy oil resources. Thirdly, to present example of heavy oil exploration, exploitation projects in Canada, particularly conducted by Canadian Natural Resources. Finally, to highlight major heavy oil exploitation projects in the Middle East. When you are talking of heavy oil, you have to bring Canada in the situation, because we are number one, perhaps, Venezuela in heavy oil exploitation. Now, let me first, let me define the heavy oil. Conventional oil has more than 25 API gravity. The API means American Petroleum Institute. And the medium is between 20 to 25. And the heavy oil is oil with API gravity between 10 and 20. The viscosity is 1,000 to 5,000 centipoise. Extra heavy oil, or natural bitumen, oil whose API gravity is less than 10 and whose viscosity is commonly between 5,000 to 10,000 centipoise. Note that viscosity is a function of temperature. Now, in short, heavy oil is defined as any type of oil that does not flow easily. So our job to flow it better, to exploit it. This slide shows the countries with significant heavy oil resources and daily production of heavy oil. The reserves are in billions. So in other words, Canada has 2.5 trillion resources, not reserve, resources. It depends on the recovery factor, then becomes reserve. Venezuela is 2.2 trillion, and Venezuela produces 1.9 million barrels a day, heavy oil, and Canada produces about 1.5 or 1.4 million barrels of heavy oil, and that is from 8 to 18 API.